Have any questions, we can talk about it at the end of the slides, right? Okay, so our literacy plan for K to second, the area of focus is going to be letter recognition, alphabetic knowledge and concepts about print. Students need instruction and practice recognizing letters in upper and lowercase forms. So we're talking K to second here, okay? Connecting letters to their primary sounds and making the connection between language and print. Phonological and phonemic awareness. Students need instructions on how to recognize and manipulate the sounds that make up the words. So Masad is trying to tell you guys like what these teachers do in the class. All right. With our kindergarten, first and second, obviously it's going to be letters, it's going to be sounds, putting the letters together to form a word. All right. Phonics and word recognition. Students need explicit, sequential, and systematic instructions on sound spelling, correspondence, and patterns, both in isolation and context of decodable text. All right, so our teachers are working really hard with the kids, not only on the letters, but the sounds, phonics. They're doing a lot of phonics this year. And everything's embedded with everything. They're all in sync. So the books that they're using, if they're learning something here, it's going to be in another book, and another book, and another book, so that this child will be able to know what they're reading and know what's going on. Okay. Now, for grades 3 to 5, they're going to focus on accuracy, appropriate rate and expressions, vocabulary and knowledge. Okay, students need instruction and exposure to texts that allow them to develop robust vocabularies and a broad knowledge of the world that they can draw on to making meaning of a text. So kids are going to be reading, they're going to have close reading texts where they're analyzing the text that they're reading. They're being exposed to new vocabulary words. These are all very important, especially when it comes to time of testing, because when we test these kids, there's going to be vocabulary, there's going to be grammar, there's going to be all of that. So it's important that they're exposed to everything. Text comprehension, students comprehend what they read when they are both able to fluently decode the text and understand the words on the page. When these are both in place, students need instruction and practice analyzing, interpreting, and evaluating text using key ideas and details, craft and structure, and integration of knowledge and ideas. So again, when our kids are exposed to any kind of comprehension text, they are analyzing the text. Teachers are asking them lots of questions. They're exposed to vocabulary words, spelling words, everything, okay? And like, again, they're practicing, they're analyzing, they're evaluating, and you're getting to know the key ideas, the theme, the plot, the setting, everything. It's very, very important. All right, so now this is what you guys need to know. What's really important is the homework expectations. Every day there should be math homework for 40 math and English. Okay, do I need to translate to Arabic? Good, yeah. Okay, so أهم شيء لازم تعرفوه عن الهومورك للأولاد. نحن عادة بنعطي الأولاد 4 أيام math English. Okay, and then twice a week for science and social studies. ويومين بالأسبوع للsocial studies والscience. Okay. Should not require more than an hour of students' time. So لما بيعطوا هيدا الهومورك مش لازم ياخد أكتر من ساعة. It shouldn't take more than an hour. If you feel that your child is spending more time, you can always let us know. We can see what to do. Okay. They should have reading for at least 20 minutes as part of their homework is highly recommended. So كتير مهم يكون الأولاد عندهم شيء قصة أو شيء شغلة عم يقروها لو 20 دقيقة بالنهار. Okay. Again, when they're exposed to reading, they're exposed to listening, speaking, reading. It's literacy all together. Hello, writing expectations. We have the EET model for K to 3. That's a model that teachers are working on. And then our other model is called the ICE-T. This is for 4 to 5th. So لما بيكون عندنا أولاد أي كتابة writing في models نحن بنلجأ لها. من K للثالث اسمها EET. هنا الأساتذة بيكون عندهم باكيتس والأشياء بعطوهم للأولاد. والتلاميذ من الرابع حتى ال 12 نحن بنستعمل الICE-T للأولاد. Okay, كمان there's questions, يعني في أسئلة في أشياء. There's questions in the ICE-T model. They have to refer to. They got to give main idea, key concepts, all of that. Narrative, writing to tell a story, to describe an experience. Okay, so we have different types of writing. We have narrative writing, which is to tell a story and describe an experience. We have informative, explanatory, writing to examine a topic and convey ideas and information clearly. We have opinion, which is a persuasive or argument, writing to persuade, argue, and state an opinion supported by reasons and evidence. So our kids are, that's what we focus on, all right? Our main focus is these three writing types, okay? أهم شيء نحن الأولاد يعني لما بدنا نركز عليهم هودي الثلاثة narrative, informative, and opinion. Narrative يعني بدهم يكتبوا عن قصة أو experience هن صارت عندهم، okay? Informative بدهم يعطونا نعطيهم نحن topic وهن بدهم يقولوا لنا يعني important information about that topic. And then opinion, persuasive, they need to write to persuade يعني هن بدهم يبقوا بطريقة إنه إذا قلنا لهم اليونيفورمز ليش نحن بدنا نلبس يونيفورمز بدهم يعطونا أفكار و ideas exactly بالضبط. Okay, the writing tasks are often big passage based, meaning that students read a passage, literary or informational, and then respond to a prompt using informative, explanatory writing, drawing evidence from the provided text. Okay, this is our main focus, and the reason we focus around this as well is because our M-Steps and WA, they also focus on the same writing prompts, so that's why we like to stick to this. So again, with communication and homework, Parent Square, that's our form of communication, and another one is Google Classroom. So we have our teachers, they might copy and paste, you'll see it on Parent Square, on Google Classroom, look at a glance. They might have weekly topics, objectives, upcoming tests, quizzes, assignments or projects with deadlines and school-wide events. So كتير مهم الأهالي يكون عندهم access to Parent Square و Google Classroom. يعني يمكن مرات بتلاقوا المعلمة عم تحط نفس الشيء هون وهون عشان الأهل إذا ما قادرين Parent Square they have Google Classroom. أو بالعكس. كتير مهم نحن نقول للأساتذة يستخدموا هذه form of communication عشان بيقدروا يحطوا إذا في امتحانات أو حتى الأهل بنقول هذا الأسبوع نحن نتعلم حرف الباء. So it's really important that you guys have access to Google Classroom or Parent Square, so you guys know what your, if a test is coming up, any kind of school-wide event, any kind of quizzes, we always tell teachers to put what they're doing that week. So if they're learning something in math, they'll tell us what they're learning. Okay. Again, homework expectations, same thing, ELA math 4 times a week, and then science and social studies is 2. So again, نرجع homework نحن عادة 4 أيام إنجليزي math ويومين بين الساينس والسوشيال ستاديز. Okay. Okay. Specials. I am the coordinator for specials and literacy. We can also see literacy in specials. When I say specials, I'm talking about music, art, PE, and Arabic. Okay. So I'm a coordinator that holds 4 أشياء music and arts and then العربي with music. Okay. And then we can see how literacy is embedded in each subject, okay? When we talk about music, students are able to decode and interpret symbols and patterns, similar to reading a text, develop listening and comprehension through analyzing song meanings, expand vocabulary with music terminology, strengthening writing skills through reflections and analysis, and connect music to poetry and literature through shared language and themes. So even with music, we're doing a lot of analyzing, we're doing a lot of interpreting. Kids are also exposed to new vocabulary words. So literacy is embedded in music in all these different ways. Okay. Art supports literacy. Okay, our students, they also interpret visual text to understand symbols, emotions, and meaning. They build academic vocabulary using precise art terminology. They strengthen expressive writing through reflections and techniques. They enhance reading comprehension and critical thinking with artists' biographies and art history. They develop storytelling skills by creating visual narratives that connect with written expressions. So again, in art, you're going to see a lot of analyzing, a lot of new vocabulary words, a lot of new terminology as well. Okay. Next, we have PE, physical education. All right, our kids also They read and follow written instructions, rules, and workout plans. They strengthen speaking and listening through teamwork and communication. They expand vocabulary with fitness and health related terminology. They build comprehension by reading informational texts about health and exercise. And they develop expressive writing through reflections and goal setting journals. So even in PE, you guys might think, oh, my kids are just, they're playing basketball, they're playing soccer, but at the same time, they're still listening, they're still following directions, they know the rules, and they're getting exposed to new words, dribbling, passing, stuff like that. Okay, Arabic supports literacy. I think you all, know that. They build reading skills, they decode letters, sounds, and words, strengthening phonemic awareness and comprehension. They expand vocabulary. Students will learn new words and expressions that enhance both oral and written communication. They develop writing skills. They practice proper sentence structure, grammar, and creative writing through stories, essays, and reflections. They enhance listening and speaking. They engage in discussions, storytelling, and presentations to build fluency and understanding, and cultural and textual understanding. They read Arabic literature, poetry, and cultural texts to connect language learning with history and identity. So Arabic is also an important subject that we have, and as you can see, it focuses on all the aspects of listening, reading, writing, and speaking as well. Okay. Any questions? All right, we're going to move on. I'm going to give this to Ms. Al-Awad. Ms. Al-Awad is our AP Science and Instructional Coach. She teaches eighth grade.
No, that's fine.
You got it. All right.
All right. Good morning. Sabah al-khair. Most of you know me already. My name is Ms. Dana Al-Awad. I taught most of your kids in the past couple of years. This year, I'm the science instructional lead and also the AP environmental science teacher. And I also still teach 8th grade science. So the reason why we are covering literacy and science, يعني اللي هي أساسيات القراءة والكتاب. Why we talk about this in science, and also I will go over math as well, is because as you may have seen in our newsletter that just was live yesterday on Parents Square, science and literacy, or even science and math, go hand in hand. So now, without being able to read and write, we will not be able to understand the content that we are explaining. So I'm starting my presentation with a question from the state testing, who will MSTEP, that students usually sit for science in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. So this is a science question, believe it or not, but it has a lot of lengthy text. The questions themselves are about vocabulary. So if I look at science from a science point of view, we do teach this content, which is chemical reactions. But if we look at the question right away, we're not seeing that. We're seeing a text, we're seeing a diagram, we're seeing questions about vocabulary. So if the student is not literate enough and able to understand text, to understand vocabulary, and to use that vocabulary, they will ultimately not perform well. And though our goal is not testing itself, but learning altogether, but this is a really solid example of why students walk out of tests and say, we did not learn this. We did learn this, but literacy skills were applied in, and that's why we are working this year to align our literacy practice, not only in science, but across all grade levels and also across subjects, so that students develop their literacy skills and use them across multiple subjects and across multiple grade levels as well. So how do we promote literacy skills in science? And what I say here also applies to math, since I'm also covering Ms. Ansari's section, and Ms. Ansari is also our math instruction lead. So when students are exposed to different texts or reports or data or different sources of information, they are required to read. And reading is a core skill in literacy. So without being able to read and understand what is being read, they will not be able to understand the content. And this is the difference between science at the college level, بالجامعة, or science at school. We're not only teaching the content, اللي هو biology or chemistry or physics, we're also teaching students how to understand that knowledge. And that's where literacy comes into play. We also look at connecting and analyzing ideas. If I have multiple sources of information, if I have this big of a textbook, how can I really understand and filter out the information that I need to be able to understand And how can I use this moving forward beyond the classroom walls? Because ultimately, not everyone's going to remember photosynthesis, but everyone's going to remember the skill that they used in literacy to learn this new content. And finally, when students write or speak, because again, if a student is required to explain, بده يشرح لي reaction, how it happens, or if they're required to write a paragraph, these are all literacy skills. So that is why throughout this year and moving forward, we are refining our literacy practices to focus more on the components of literacy, which students might not see or feel right away, but we are incorporating and working with other core teachers as well, not only in science, so that they are exposed to as many literacy skills as possible. So what you will see in our interactive binders or within our classes or within student notebooks are these 4 practices, which are usually best practices in science, aligning with other core subjects as well, as Ms. Saleh already mentioned. So what I'm going to talk about right now is how you can help your students at home and how we are implementing literacy practices in science. So first of all, we're going to go to vocabulary balls. والفوكابولاري بولز اللي هن الكلمات اللي بنستعملهم اللي مرتبطة بالمادة نفسها. اللي هن the words that, as you saw in the first slide, they were questioned on. So what is volume? What is density? So the way we are addressing this is through vocabulary walls that students see in class, and they are exposed to these words in the beginning of every lesson. So before students get that big text or they are required to write a paragraph to explain scientific phenomena, they are exposed to the academic vocabulary, they define it using their own words, they draw a picture to remember what the word means, so that once they are exposed to this vocabulary moving forward, it alleviates some of the stress. And that is where literacy comes into play. Another very important method, which we are all used to and students hated when we first started using, but now it's become a healthy habit of note-taking, is Cornell note-taking. And again, when I talk about Cornell note-taking, هي طريقة لأخذ الملاحظات والأفكار من النص بطريقة نحن بنستوعبها ونحن أهوننا ندرسها. And this filters out unnecessary information and allows students to build on their knowledge. And this is not only in science. This is in math, this is in social studies, this is in ELA. And this is how we start to make it more of a cohesive approach across all core subjects and specials as well, so that students find this to be a practice and not a class expectation or a subject expectation. Text annotations, which students who are usually very visual enjoy. Once we highlight important words or once we circle vocabulary words, this helps students moving forward to understand text, and whenever they go back to a question in their SAT or PSAT or MSTEP or NWEA, I'm not looking at a big text anymore. I'm looking at the main ideas that I highlighted. And these are all very important skills, not only for literacy, but also in science as well. لأنه هودي مهارات التفكير العليا, the higher order thinking skills, which we develop in our classes. And finally, the claim evidence reasoning model, which aligns with the RACE method in ELA, which aligns with the ICE-T method in ELA as well, that's implemented in lower elementary and upper elementary, is when we incorporate scientifically accurate claims based on evidence. كيف نحن بناخد البراهين ونطلع باستنتاج وبنربطه بالتعلم اللي أخذناه قبل, which is the claim evidence reasoning model. So when looking at your students or at your children's interactive binders, when you're looking at their notebooks, if you ever happen to see videos that we take in class, you will see all those practices being implemented and aligned with other literacy practices across the curriculum as well. I'm not gonna repeat what I said for science because it also applies in math. But again, in math, as we align our practices across 4 classes, we are looking at vocabulary as well, reading math texts, and close reading is actually implemented in ELA as well. We are looking at how students learn and write, and that's where you see the claim evidence reasoning model as well, which I also mentioned for science, speaking and reasoning in math. And where usually in math do we have a lot of reading and writing? it's in word problems. Even sometimes the number is written in letters, which, requires students to be literate, to be able to read and write. يكون عندهم مفاهيم القراءة والكتابة المضبوطة اللي بتسمح لهم ينتقلوا ليطبقوا اللي تعلموه من خلال هيدا النص اليومي. So in math, we are going to be looking at different strategies which align with what Ms. Saleh said, what I said for science, and what we will see for ELA as well. Students are going to be reading, writing, and speaking. The claim evidence reasoning model will be implemented, and students will be focusing on academic vocabulary. Now, a little technicality, they usually use the Freyer model, اللي هي بتحط الكلمة in a chart, and they link it to things that they know, examples, so that this vocabulary becomes embedded. Math and science, parents can really support students at home because these are related to real life experiences. And بالعلوم ولا بالرياضيات, we can really implement this. We can relate, if our child is with us in the supermarket and we're grocery shops, and we start adding, and we use the vocabulary of adding, subtracting. If I'm cooking at home and I'm out of salt, how can I, cut down on the ingredients? This makes the learning more applicable, but it also deepens the use of the academic vocabulary, which ultimately leads to more academic and literacy practice. And that is all for me. Are there any questions? All right. Yes.
Question, when you broke down the IC method and ECC, you didn't say, what does that stand for?
All right, so this, I can talk about claim evidence reasoning because it is a science practice, but the ICT method is introduction, citing, evidence, explaining, and so this is an ELA model, which Mr. Fanharawi will talk about, but they all focus on evidence-based claims and using evidence to come up with a written text which describes a certain phenomenon. All right, so for CER, which is used in math and science, it's claim evidence reasoning. Race and IC, I think you, Mr. Fanharawi.
No race, ICT.
No race, just IC. All right. So thank you so much, and thank you for taking an active role and being here and supporting us as we help our students. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Ali. Nice to meet you all again. You've been here for a few years. You should know who I am. بس تسألوني أترجم العربي تضحكون علي ويماتي عربي. So it's just going to be all in English. So with our ULA literacy plan for the secondary level, we've completely overhauled the way we do all of our tier 1 instruction. So every day in the classroom from 6th grade to 12th grade, all classes should be doing the same thing according to the schedule. So an example of that would be the weekly flow is now following this day-to-day agenda. Every Monday and Tuesday is note-taking, background knowledge, key vocabulary. Every Wednesday, we reserve it for practice, close readings, and assessment of skills. And every Thursday and Friday, we have writing-focused days in which students have some type of written response or essay work that takes place in the classroom. Literacy plan continued. We've also completely overhauled the units that our students are going to be doing. So starting this year already, we've implemented this. All grades across 6 through 12, their unit 1 is poetry and narrative information. So every one of your students, 6 through 12, has poetry as their first unit, which should already be done. So now all students should be working on their novel and short story. They're working on their informative and explanatory, and they're working on their compare and contrast writing. Unit 3, which is coming up after Unit 2, is the nonfiction and informational text. They're going to be working on My Hero essays, personal narratives, biographies. Unit 4 is their research and argumentative unit, where they're going to be doing in-depth research and writing an essay. And Unit 5 is the place last year on. The reason that we've structured our units in this way is that it aligns with the flow of the school year. Things start out a little easier. Things start out a little better for the students to kind of get back into the school year. And as we progress, it gets more difficult, and it really lines up with the standardized testing that we have. So as we get to Unit 3 and Unit 4, It's right around that April time where that we have the SAT testing, the PSAT testing, the NWEA testing, the M-STEP testing. So they're getting all of that key information right when they need it. And that's that. Here's the iced tea that we've talked about, all three of us so far, everyone across the board. Our writing structure revolves around the iced tea model. It stands for introduce, cite, explain, and tie back. So they introduce their claim or idea, they cite their evidence, they explain why they chose to support that with the evidence they chose, and they tie it back to their thesis. Every week, they're going to be working on that writing every Thursday and Friday, as we already discussed. So week one, they start that writing model, they start that essay. So throughout the entirety of the unit, they should be working on some type of big essay throughout the week. So the first week, they're introduced to the assignment. They understand the model. Second week, they begin to draft their paragraphs. They get in depth with their evidence. They start to select their texts. Week three, they expand into their multi-paragraphs. They start to really flesh out their final essay. Week four, they have their full draft ready to go, ready to be edited, ready to be worked on, have some clarity, have their evidence. Week five, they have that final draft ready to go, ready to be submitted. So across 5 weeks, they're working on the same assignment, the same essay, piece by piece, they're putting it together. That way it's not just one long stretch of an essay that they don't fully understand.
That's for ELA, right?
So it should be across all the classes outside of science and math, but every class has some type of written response Thursdays and Fridays.
And social study, are they doing also an essay?
Yes, social studies, they are absolutely doing a full essay. So it's different from the ELA essay in social studies. They very specifically do research-based essays that tie back to the historical accuracies. Other things part of our literacy plan include interventionist support. It includes the MTSS, it includes paraprofessionals. Very proudly, we have a paraprofessional, I think, in every class now, every ELA class at least, or at the very least 90%. So we have that extra support for just about every ELA teacher to really help the students that need it. We have our MTSS system, which is our multi-tiered system of supports. Students are carefully selected for additional support based on NWA scores, based on grade point average, based on a variety of factors. Then we have interventionist support. That's for students that are falling behind or need additional support to be pulled out of the classroom. So we have lots of support for all of our ELA students. Any questions? No? Oh, I can't. ما أقدر أترجم العربي.
Yeah, you try.
ما أحكي عربي زين والله. بطل ناس.
Yeah. صح. لأن هذا كنا نحكي عنه هو مصطلح. So حتى عنا الإصدار مش بس عن المعلم بالصف بس كمان عن البروفيشنال. عند البروفيشنال اللي بتساعد مع المعلم يعني إذا عندهم ضعف بالماث بيركزوا على الماث إذا عندهم ضعف بالإيرلي بيركزوا على الإنجليش. Additional عن ESL services كمان. إذا الولد ضعيف بالإنجليزي كمان فينا نعطيه ESL services. So بيضل عنا extra layers of services. بيضل مثلا بنقدر نعطي الطالب شيء بنقدر نساعده وعلمه يعني بتبقى. Okay. Would you like me to explain that in English? Yeah. Okay. So, what I was explaining, mom was asking if the child has some kind of, he's not doing so well in English or not. So, elementary, we have, paraprofessionals will go with all the. So, the paraprofessional will help them with either math or English, whatever the kid needs. We also have math interventions. حتى عندنا math just بتعلم math but you don't stuff.
What is science?
Oh, science, yeah, we have a paraprofessional, yeah. So for all, like every core subject that we have someone helping these kids out. Especially with K to 5. So, we look into their grades, we look into their NWA scores, we look into many factors. We can support them with math, English, ESL services, we have these, we give these kids a lot of extra support that they need. Any other questions? أي حدا عنده بعد سؤال? You guys have any more questions?
I know this is about literacy, but for math, I understand you say you have math support in the classroom.
In the classroom, and then we have also a math interventionist, so they might be double dosing sometimes.
That's fine. So
Yeah.
for the parents at home.
Yeah.
Is there like a e-learning workshop to explain to us? Because when they come home,
Mhm.
I'm using my daughter for example, she
Yeah.
comes home and she shows me the new math learning. And I try to explain to her, she gets confused and then she gets anxiety. I'm like, calm down, it's okay. So is there, I guess, a gap or a bridge for at home
Mhm.
and at school dealing with the parents in the school, like a gap, a connection, a bridge?
As a parent myself, especially with math, I'm not really good at that, I'll be honest with you. When my child bring in any kind of math, I would, get on to like Khan Academy.
Mhm.
And then whatever is like the math that, the equation or the expression, I put it in there. And then it actually explains everything
Okay.
for the student. Even if you go on YouTube, you'll find a lot of things like that as well. Because at the end of the day, I'm not a math expert, you know what I mean? I get that. So that's what I can recommend. It's very helpful. Khan Academy, Khan Academy, KHAN. It's amazing. We also use it in school. Yeah. KHAN.
Can I also add something?
Yeah.
Because I know, you're talking about, we also have IXL.
Oh, yeah, that's
And-
another, yeah.
Yes, usually for your daughter specifically, whenever she gets something wrong, IXL re-explains. The way IXL explains is aligned with how we teach something in class, because sometimes math, the way we calculate things is not the way we teach things, or the way we're used to doing it.
Right.
So reference back to IXL, the specific explanation, because it is very aligned with how we go over content and skills in our classes.
Got you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions, parents? Anything? Yes.
At the risk of exposing myself, what? I get the same thing as she does, where I'm like, I don't know the dots and this, I'm just gonna show you how to do it.
Yeah.
I show it my way,
Yes.
and then I let them use the option of either way.
Yeah.
So do you discourage that because it's not gonna line up with their testing, but I give them the critical thinking of solving it two different ways, finding more than one way to solve something. So
Yeah, that's
if
perfectly fine.
I'm teaching him,
Yeah.
okay, they taught you long division is this way, let me show you my way,
Yeah.
how I was taught when I was a kid, because it was like that.
Yeah, it was.
Your math is taking me 10 minutes. It takes you 10 minutes to do this problem. Let me show you how to do it in 30 seconds. Just boom, 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 it's done. So that's why I'm exposing myself, because that's how I roll at home.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know what? I don't get it, but you need to get the answer right. Let me show you a different way to come to the same conclusion, because this isn't working for you. Here's how it works for me. And then they have two different things, but I don't want them to be getting confused either, where they're getting in trouble for coming to the same answer, but in the
In a
wrong
diff-
way because of the show your work thing.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So I teach them I'm sorry, I'm gonna tell you it's straight up the easy way to do it.
Yeah.
And then I let them go ahead and try and figure out this hard way at school. You all can teach them that. I'm just teach them how to get the answer, and you
Yeah.
can teach them how to do the work, but
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it.
There are, I wish Ms. Latsadi would, be able to explain that.
I'm sorry.
Anything with specials, ELA, social studies, I can help you, but it comes to math. Do you want to answer that question?
It's just, I was in advanced math classes.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of easier ways to come up with the same solution. So if I'm teaching you, you come home and you tell me, okay, mom, 25 divided by, or let me say, 243, or 243 divided by 3. What is the answer? Okay, 24 divided by 3 is 8, 3 divided by 3 is 1. There you go, it's 81. Bam. But no, you guys want them to do this like, when I got them showing their work, in order for them to show their work, I need you to teach them that. I can't do that. I can get them to the answer, but I can't get them to work. I'm sorry, old dog, new tricks. It's not.
What you're talking about.
You get what I'm saying? They bring it to me and I'm like,
we're required to do dimensional analysis, which is also a very complex way of calculating. And my students usually tend to just cross multiply, and it is very easy for them to get it right. Unfortunately, in some cases, and in some of our state standards, there is a required way. So for example, in the AP class, if they don't follow this specific way, they don't get the point.
Right. Wow.
So usually what we do is that we model and we teach the students this way. I'm going to be very honest with you. I tell them, go check your answer using your own way.
Right, okay.
Because
So you do
showing
allow
you-
them to have more than one way to come about the
as
answer,
long
but
as
they have to show the work the way that the state requires
Yes.
to show. So they
This
have
is
to
aligned with
know
our
the
state
way you're
standards.
doing it, but we can show them an easier way to come up with the answer.
Because sometimes it just
They
makes
don't
sense.
discourage.
Whatever you're saying right now, it makes sense. Why would I have to show the fractions and multiply and, you know, set it up in this particular way and plug in the numbers here and there if I can just think about it right away?
Yeah.
So you can use this. We tell them you can use this to check your answer.
Right.
But ultimately, whenever it's a state testing or whenever it's aligned with the standards that require this specific setting up or this specific way of calculating, then we usually teach and model them how to do it.
Okay, and then just one more question to extend that. If you're, oh no, I lost it. Oh no, it's gone. Hold on. Sorry, I have like.
That's fine.
It goes away.
We're teachers, we're patients.
Oh, when does it transition? So when does it become, I'm teaching you critical thinking, I need you to literally see the dots, I need you to literally see the bubbles and the circles and the numbers to, I need you to figure it out in your head, critical thinking, this is how you do it. So when do they transition from the bubbles, dots and all that to the adult math? Is that just algebra? That when they go up into, they get out of this basic learning it, get it down, and then once it's down, they just transition it over
So
and it goes to
I-
my math?
I can talk about science because we do incorporate a lot of that in data.
Oh, yeah, you're said the math teachers, I'm sorry.
Sorry, she's not here today.
But again, early in middle school, we teach them because critical thinking is a skill. It is not something that you have right away.
Right.
We teach them and we build on that knowledge, but as early as sixth grade, we start exposing students to these skills.
To doing it without seeing it, so
To
where
be
you have
able
to
to
think
link-
it out, you know what I
To
mean?
be able to link numbers and data to actual interpretation of what that data is. That is what I can say for
But
some.
it does change,
It becomes more complex.
it becomes more complex, so it does change where, I'm just making sure that they're not gonna constantly be like, okay, I'm 25 years old, I need to write some dots. I don't want them doing that, I need them to learn how to just long division the whole way, just do it, you know what I mean? And in their head, not writing it down, I don't want them picturing bubbles and dots and being like, Chinese people, they're like this when they count. I don't need them to be like,
And again, this is.
I gotta draw 5,000 bubbles because I need to know what 1,000,000 divided by 10 is. I mean, they got 10, 25 bubbles and suddenly I'm lost. I'm going, I don't know what these bubbles are, so. There is a transition point when it's just like algebra. So they get out of basic math as they move up the way they construct it and criticize it and get the critical thinking and it just adjusts to it. So it eventually does stop. That's what I'm saying. Doesn't stop.
I think it changes by grade too.
Just as they're doing it, they stop doing it, they start teaching them the way we were taught. They're just doing a more simplified way as they work them up to make sure that critical thinking is there.
But again,
So I want to speak about,
yes, go ahead.
speak about my daughter specifically, especially in math. Jewel, since fourth grade, her math skills and learning is so much better now than it was before. So now in seventh grade, Jewel is so much better and able, and she can comprehend better the equation or whatever it is that she's doing.
So they found this style working
This
that's
is-
causing the critical
it's
thinking
working
that's
for her
available.
now.
It's evaporating the paper
And the
use.
reason why,
It
I'm
does.
sorry to intervene here, but it's also related to cognitive abilities at different age groups. So the bubbles and the dots,
It's
is
pretty cool.
because younger students don't have that abstract thinking.
That's what I'm.
The older they get, they stop requiring, their brains stop requiring them to
The visual.
visualize content.
That's what I was.
Abstract thinking becomes more solidified. That's why content becomes more complex, because their brains can handle it. So your daughter is a perfect example, because she lets
Not
go of
only
these
that,
practices.
The teacher plays a huge role in that.
Oh, yeah.
So Mr. Sidley, he taught her last year and his teacher teaching her this year. So he's
Really good.
continuing whatever he found them last year and exploring it and imploding it this year. And you can see it. You can see it in June when she's doing math, when she's answering the question, when she's asking him questions. It's so much better this year than last year. 100%.
My main question is not so much to challenge the system, is to make sure that I understand the importance of it, so I'm not going, just forget about that stuff, I don't care about that, just this is how you do it, because that's, you know, they didn't have this when I was little. When I was growing up, it was just immerse them in it and figure it out, and we're not doing bubbles, we're not doing all this stuff, but it's very frustrating, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
But if it's not gonna be something that, it's just the teaching them the critical thinking, so it's an important.
HES Academies have been serving the Detroit metro area for over 23 years, promoting academic excellence, leadership, and cultural diversity, ranking as some of the top schools in the state of Michigan. Our pre-K through 12th grade students enjoy tuition-free, state-accredited education by STEM certified and highly qualified staff with no geographical restrictions, and with advanced placement, college dual enrollment, scholarship, and Arabic language programs. Noor International Academy in Sterling Heights at niapsa.org, Star International Academy in Dearborn Heights and in Canton at starpsa.org, Universal Academy in Detroit at universalpsa.org, and Universal Learning Academy in Westland at ulapsa.org. Join HES Academies today and enjoy a free Chromebook for every enrolled student.